When the Star Wars series Andor premiered, it was celebrated as a rebirth, an awakening of mature, politically intelligent science fiction. Gone was the simplistic binary of good versus evil, replaced instead by a nuanced world of ordinary people facing tough, often devastating decisions. It was human-centered storytelling, stripped of space magic, deeply resonating with our contemporary anxieties. Yet, while Andor captivated audiences and critics alike, another groundbreaking series had quietly mastered this approach years earlier. The Expanse offered audiences a complex universe, driven by scientific plausibility and intricate geopolitics, filled with morally complex characters facing ethical dilemmas that mirrored our own world's struggles. Both series share more than mature content. They embrace maturity itself as sophisticated storytelling, profound moral ambiguity, and an honest portrayal of harsh realities. This documentary explores how The Expanse and Andor became defining examples of a new wave of mature science fiction, reflecting back at us the complexity of human politics, ethics, and identity. Because today, perhaps more than ever, we need stories that don't merely entertain, but challenge, question, and compel us to look closer. Chapter 1: The Realpolitics of the Stars. You think that just because somebody's the underdog, that means they're the good guy. Adewale Bull Ojikutu, The Expanse, Season 5, Episode 2 Churn. Where Star Wars traditionally painted in bold strokes of light versus dark, The Expanse shades its story in layers of history, fear, and survival. Earth, governed by the United Nations, is an overpopulated, stagnant power, weighed down by bureaucracy and social control. Its billions kept pacified under surveillance and economic dependency. Mars, driven by technological nationalism and military discipline, strives for an ambitious terraforming dream. But when the universe expands through the ring gates, Mars faces disillusionment and internal collapse. The belt represents humanity's exploited frontier. Belters endure extreme scarcity and cultural oppression, their identities forged in struggle and resilience against systemic injustice. Unlike traditional sci-fi conflicts, the factions in The Expanse aren't neatly divided into heroes and villains. Each power struggles with internal contradictions, alliances, and betrayals. In contrast, Andor's galactic empire wields power through bureaucratic tyranny, surveillance, and a ruthless efficiency that transforms ordinary civil servants into instruments of oppression. The rebellion, far from united, is fractured by ideology and method. Clandestine cells, moral compromises, and the heavy price of resistance highlight that freedom is neither romantic nor easy. Both series illuminate how political entities are rarely simple. They reflect historical and contemporary realities, colonialism, fascism, authoritarianism, and force us to question the nature and ethics of power itself. But beneath these vast political structures, it's the individuals, their ethics, their trauma, their humanity, that form the true battleground of these mature stories. The way I see it, there's only 3 kinds of people in this world: bad ones, ones you follow, and ones you need to protect. Amos Burton, The Expanse, Season 2, Episode 6, Paradigm Shift. Chapter 2: Characters on the Edge of Ethics. In The Expanse and Andor, politics and philosophy are intimately explored through the deeply personal struggles and ethical conflicts of their characters. James Holden, a moral idealist burdened by unintended consequences, embodies the painful truth of idealism tested against the brutal realities of power and survival. Amos Burton, shaped by trauma and lacking innate moral guidance, adopts ethics as survival. His violence, though unsettling, emerges from a deep loyalty and protective instinct. Christian Avasarala operates in the moral gray areas of political power, justifying ruthless diplomacy and harsh measures to ensure Earth's survival. Her decisions question if ends ever justify the means. Naomi Nagata embodies the painful intersections of personal trauma, cultural identity, and radical resistance, torn between loyalty to her Belter heritage and the diverse family she chose. Cassian Andor's journey reflects a gradual awakening. Hardened by oppression and initially driven by survival, his transformation into a committed rebel underlines the personal cost of resistance. Luthen Rael embodies revolutionary leadership defined by sacrifice. He willingly forfeits his humanity and decency, fully aware he fights for a freedom he himself may never see. These characters illustrate that heroism in complex worlds isn't about glory, but enduring profound ethical dilemmas and personal scars, mirroring real-world decisions about morality, sacrifice, and leadership. But beyond personal morality lies a deeper philosophical question. What does it mean to be human when confronted by forces that challenge our very understanding of humanity itself? Chapter 3: Philosophy in the Void. Both The Expanse and Andor transcend typical sci-fi narratives by confronting profound philosophical questions, questions about existence, identity, and purpose. In worlds dominated by overwhelming power, characters grapple with existential questions. Does individual action matter? Do we control our destinies? Or are we merely pawns of larger forces? Joe Miller's transformation from detective to proto-molecule emissary symbolizes humanity's ultimate confrontation with free will and determinism. His actions blur the boundaries of individual choice and cosmic inevitability. The proto-molecule's introduction challenges humanity's very definition, offering potential for evolution, but also existential threats. Its transformative power forces characters to reevaluate what it means to be human. Characters like Naomi and Cassian embody humanity's resilience in the face of personal and collective trauma. Their identities are forged not just in rebellion, but in the struggle to preserve humanity amidst moral ambiguity. Luthen Rael's speech encapsulates the philosophical core of rebellion, sacrificing morality and personal peace in the hope of a freedom he might never experience. His choices reflect the deep philosophical cost of resistance. Duarte's Laconian Empire symbolizes humanity's ultimate ambition, immortality and control through technology. It raises philosophical questions about progress, authoritarianism, and the ethical boundaries of human ambition. Ultimately, these philosophical questions resonate deeply because they reflect our own existential anxieties about identity, morality, and our collective future. Science fiction, at its best, acts as a mirror, forcing us to reflect upon our reality. But beneath philosophy lies the stark reality of rebellion itself, a gritty, fractured struggle that is rarely glamorous and never simple. Wouldn't you rather give it all at once for something real than carve a few useless pieces till there's nothing left? Luthen Rael, Andor, S1E4 Aldhani. Chapter 4: Revolution isn't romantic. Both The Expanse and Andor depict rebellion not as heroic spectacle, but as fractured, morally complex, and personally costly. Their rebels are driven by desperation as much as idealism. Marco Inaros, charismatic leader of the Free Navy, reveals the dark potential of revolutionary zeal. His violent tactics blur the line between freedom fighter and terrorist, exposing the dangerous seduction of charisma and radical ideology. Kamina Drummer embodies the complexity of leadership in fractured rebellion. Torn between solidarity and personal ethics, she symbolizes the tension between unity and ideological purity. Fred Johnson's leadership highlights redemption's precarious place in politics. His attempts to unify the Belt carry the scars of past atrocities, questioning whether redemption is possible in the harsh calculus of rebellion. Saw Gerrera illustrates rebellion taken to its most extreme. His uncompromising approach and paranoia fracture alliances and raise critical questions about the morality and effectiveness of radicalism. Mon Mothma represents rebellion tempered by political pragmatism. Her struggle between idealism and practical compromise highlights the heavy moral burden leaders face in resisting oppression. Both series emphasize that rebellion exacts a profound personal cost. The freedom they fight for often demands sacrifices that fracture friendships, families, and personal morals. Ultimately, these stories remind us that rebellions throughout history share common truths: complexity, division, sacrifice, and an uncertain path to freedom. They force us to confront the difficult reality behind revolutionary ideals. As rebellion often struggles with its own ideals, power can rise anew in different, even more insidious forms. This leads us to confront what happens when revolution gives birth to tomorrow's tyrants. An authority with two inner votes and only one for the belt isn't sharing power, it's a puppet show. I will not be reasoned back into my place. Belters are promised a future, so long as it remains convenient. We are given a voice, so long as inners control the calm. We have a vote, so long as we can always be voted down. Kamina Drummer, The Expanse, Season 6, Episode 6, Babylon's Ashes. Chapter 5. Tomorrow's Tyrants. Both The Expanse and Andor caution us that even successful rebellions can inadvertently set the stage for new forms of authoritarianism, often more subtle, more seductive, and potentially more dangerous. The Laconian Empire, emerging from the ashes of Earth's and Mars's decline, epitomizes benevolent authoritarianism. Its leader, Winston Duarte, promises stability and immortality, masking total control behind technological utopianism. Duarte embodies the seductive danger of unchecked ambition, where moral lines blur in pursuit of perceived greater good. His empire leverages technology to fundamentally redefine humanity's purpose at a profound moral cost. Laconia's pursuit of immortality through the proto-molecule represents humanity's greatest ambition and its greatest hubris. It forces us to ask if eternal life and stability are worth the loss of freedom and ethical boundaries. Andor parallels this theme through its depiction of bureaucratic tyranny. The Empire's oppressive efficiency, driven by seemingly ordinary individuals, reminds us authoritarianism can arise subtly, cloaked in administrative normality. The quiet, ruthless oppression depicted in Andor underscores how everyday individuals become complicit in authoritarian systems. It reflects how easily human rights erode under a facade of order and security. In both stories, resistance persists, but each victory feels temporary. Characters face endless cycles of power struggles, suggesting the continuous, often futile nature of resistance against authoritarian resurgence. These narratives echo historical lessons, showing how revolutions that topple tyrants often pave the way for new ones. It serves as a stark reminder of vigilance in safeguarding freedoms against ever-present threats. Ultimately, these stories matter because they reflect our reality. They compel us to examine the complex interplay between power, ethics, and humanity, and the critical importance of remaining watchful. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Karis Nemik, Andor, S1E12. Rick's Road. Epilogue. Science fiction. As mirror at its heart, great science fiction like The Expanse and Andor isn't merely speculative. It holds a mirror up to our own humanity, forcing us to confront the realities we often ignore. These stories challenge viewers by refusing easy answers or clear heroes. and villains. They provoke questions rather than offering comfortable escapism, underscoring that true maturity in storytelling comes from honesty about life's complexities. As we witness the struggles and complexities of these fictional worlds, we are reminded to reflect deeply on our own societies, on the ethical dilemmas, power dynamics, and systemic injustices that define our lives. Yet, these narratives also highlight humanity's incredible resilience and enduring hope. Despite overwhelming odds, the characters persist, embodying the courage and tenacity we aspire to see in ourselves. Mature narratives like The Expanse and Andor hold immense value precisely because they don't simplify the world. They embrace its complexity. They remind us that maturity isn't found in cynicism, but in thoughtful, critical reflection. In times marked by division, uncertainty, and rapid change, stories that speak truthfully about power, humanity, and ethics become more than entertainment. They become necessary tools for understanding and navigating our world. As we move beyond spectacle into profound reflection, we recognize the enduring importance of stories that challenge, question, and compel us to grow. Stories that reflect our past, illuminate our present, and dare us to envision a better future.